Welcome to Pages from History, where the greatest stories of human civilization unfold before your eyes. Today we journey to the ancient world to discover the Persian Empire, from Cyrus to Alexander, a tale of ambition, conquest, and the rise and fall of history's most magnificent superpower. Stay with us until the end to witness how one man's vision created an empire that changed the world forever. First, the rise of Cyrus the Great. The year was 559 BCE, when a young prince named Cyrus inherited the small kingdom of Anshan in the rugged mountains of Persia. The land was harsh and unforgiving, where stone fortresses clung to cliff sides and warriors trained in valleys shadowed by snow-capped peaks. Cyrus stood on the ramparts of his modest palace, his dark eyes surveying the limestone walls that had protected his ancestors for generations. He wore simple woolen robes dyed in royal purple, a golden torque around his neck marking his royal lineage among the Persian tribes. The young king's ambition burned fiercer than the sacred fires kept by Zoroastrian priests in their mountainside temples. Around him, advisors dressed in layered tunics and tall felt caps whispered concerns about the mighty Median Empire that ruled over Persia. In the throne room with its cedar pillars and woven tapestries depicting ancient heroes, Cyrus gathered his most trusted warriors for counsel. Oil lamps cast dancing shadows on walls, adorned with bronze shields and captured weapons from tribal conflicts of previous generations. The Persian nobles wore leather armor reinforced with bronze scales, their beards oiled and braided according to ancient custom and tradition. They pledged loyalty to their ambitious king, offering their swords and the warriors from villages scattered across the mountainous Persian homeland. Cyrus began his campaign against Median overlordship with careful planning, forging secret alliances with discontented nobles in the enemy court. His messengers rode swift horses across desert trade routes, carrying sealed letters written on leather scrolls, promising freedom and shared power. The decisive moment came when Median General Harpagus, nursing old grievances against his king, defected with half the imperial army. On a dusty plain where two rivers met, the fate of empires hung in balance as Persian and Median forces faced each other. Cyrus rode a magnificent white stallion, his bronze helmet gleaming in the morning sun as he addressed his troops with inspiring words. The battle was fierce but brief, with the Median king Astyages captured and brought before Cyrus in chains of iron and gold. The young conqueror showed mercy that shocked the ancient world, treating his defeated enemy with respect and integrating Median nobility into his administration. This act of clemency became the foundation of Persian imperial policy, a radical departure from the brutal conquests of previous empires. By 550 BCE, Cyrus controlled the vast Median Empire, transforming overnight from a mountain chieftain into the ruler of millions. In captured cities, he preserved local customs and temples, winning the loyalty of diverse peoples through tolerance rather than terror. Second, building an empire of tolerance. Cyrus turned his gaze westward toward Lydia, where King Croesus sat on a throne of legendary wealth in his capital at Sardis. The Lydian kingdom gleamed with gold from river mines, its marketplaces bustling with merchants trading precious metals and exotic goods. Croesus, confident in his riches and alliance with Greek city-states, assembled a formidable army adorned in bronze breastplates and crested helmets. The Persian king responded by marching his forces across the Anatolian plateau, where ancient Hittite ruins dotted the landscape like broken teeth. The armies met near the Halys River, where autumn leaves turned the surrounding forests into a tapestry of gold and crimson. After an indecisive battle, Croesus retreated to Sardis, believing winter would protect him from further Persian aggression and military campaigns. But Cyrus surprised the ancient world by continuing his campaign through snow and ice, his hardy Persian cavalry pressing forward relentlessly. The siege of Sardis lasted only 14 days before Persian soldiers scaled the supposedly impregnable Acropolis walls at dawn. Croesus was captured in his treasure-filled palace, surrounded by golden cups, silver plates, and precious stones from across the known world. Again Cyrus showed mercy, sparing the defeated king's life, and even granting him a role as royal advisor and counselor. The conquest of Lydia brought Greek cities of Ionia under Persian control, introducing Eastern and Western civilizations in unprecedented ways. In these coastal cities, Persian administrators worked alongside Greek magistrates, creating a multicultural governance system that respected local autonomy and traditions. Cyrus then turned toward Babylon, the ancient city of Hammurabi, where ziggurats rose like man-made mountains above the Euphrates River. Babylonian king Nabonidus had alienated his subjects by neglecting traditional religious festivals and favoring obscure gods over beloved Marduk. The Persian army approached Babylon's massive walls, each brick stamped with royal inscriptions and decorated with glazed ceramic lions and dragons. But before any siege began, Babylonian priests and nobles opened the gates, welcoming Cyrus as a liberator rather than conqueror. The Persian king entered Babylon in triumph, proceeding directly to the great temple of Marduk, where he made offerings and restored traditional worship. His famous cylinder inscription, written in cuneiform on baked clay, proclaimed religious freedom and the return of displaced peoples to their homelands. Among those freed were the Jews, exiled for decades in Babylon, whom Cyrus allowed to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their sacred temple. This act of liberation earned him a unique honor in Jewish scripture, where he was called the Lord's Anointed One, a Messiah. The Persian Empire now stretched from the Aegean Sea to the borders of India, encompassing dozens of peoples speaking hundreds of languages. Cyrus created an administrative system respecting local customs while maintaining central authority through appointed governors called satraps, who ruled vast provinces. Third, the Golden Age of Darius. After Cyrus died in battle on the Central Asian steppes, his empire passed eventually to Darius, a distant cousin with extraordinary vision. Darius came to power through a coup in 522 BCE, claiming legitimacy through ancient royal bloodlines and military prowess demonstrated in campaigns. The new king understood that maintaining such a vast empire required revolutionary administrative innovations and infrastructure development beyond anything previously attempted. He divided the realm into 20 satrapies, each governed by a Persian noble responsible for taxation, justice, and military recruitment in their territory. To ensure satrapal loyalty, Darius created a network of royal inspectors called the Eyes and Ears of the King, who traveled incognito throughout the empire. These agents reported directly to the throne, arriving unannounced at provincial courts to audit accounts and investigate complaints from local populations. Darius established the Royal Road, stretching from Sardis to Susa, an engineering marvel spanning 1,500 miles through mountains, deserts, and plains. Along this highway, relay stations stood at regular intervals where mounted couriers changed horses, carrying royal messages at unprecedented speeds across the empire. In his new capital at Persepolis, Darius constructed a ceremonial complex that showcased the empire's wealth and multicultural character to the world. The Apadana Palace featured massive stone columns carved with lotus and papyrus capitals, its walls decorated with glazed brick reliefs showing subject peoples bearing tribute. The grand staircase depicted representatives from all corners of the empire: Ionians carrying cloth, Ethiopians with ivory, Indians leading exotic animals, and Sogdians with precious lapis lazuli. Each delegation wore their traditional costume, their distinctive features and clothing carefully rendered in stone by master sculptors from across the realm. Darius introduced a standardized coinage system using gold darics and silver sigloi, facilitating trade and commerce throughout his vast domains. These coins bore the image of the king as an archer, symbolizing Persian military might and spreading royal propaganda across marketplaces from Egypt to Bactria. The king also reformed the legal system, creating a unified code while preserving local laws and customs that didn't contradict imperial authority. In villages and cities throughout the empire, royal judges heard cases using principles of justice that influenced legal thinking for centuries to come. But Darius's ambitions extended beyond administration and architecture. He dreamed of expanding Persian power into Europe and crushing Greek independence. The free Greek city-states represented a threat to imperial ideology, their democratic experiments and independent spirit challenging the concept of divine kingship. When Ionian Greeks rebelled against Persian rule in 499 BCE, Athens and Eretria sent assistance to the insurgents, an act Darius never forgave. After crushing the Ionian revolt with brutal efficiency, he launched a punitive expedition across the Aegean to punish mainland Greece for their interference. Fourth, the Persian Wars and Decline. In 490 BCE, a Persian fleet carried thousands of soldiers across the wine-dark Aegean Sea toward the Greek mainland with conquest in mind. The ships beached at Marathon, a coastal plain northeast of Athens, where bronze-armored hoplites assembled to defend their homeland against overwhelming numbers. The Persian army, vast and multicultural, included Median cavalry, Elamite archers, and immortal infantry in their distinctive scaled armor and pleated robes. They faced a much smaller Athenian force led by General Miltiades, whose heavy infantry formed a bristling wall of bronze shields and spears. The Battle of Marathon became legendary in Greek memory, a David versus Goliath struggle where disciplined phalanx tactics overcame numerical superiority. The Athenians charged at a run across the plain, closing distance before Persian arrows could devastate their ranks in the morning light. Persian casualties numbered in the thousands, while Greek losses were remarkably light, and the defeated invasion force retreated to their ships in confusion. News of victory reached Athens, carried by a messenger who ran the 26 miles before collapsing dead from exhaustion after delivering his message. Darius vowed revenge, but died before launching another invasion, leaving his son Xerxes to continue the campaign against Greek independence and pride. Xerxes inherited his father's determination and obsession, spending years assembling the largest invasion force the ancient world had ever witnessed or imagined. In 480 BCE, the Persian king led his massive army across the Hellespont on a bridge of boats, bringing Asia into Europe. The invasion force included contingents from across the empire: African elephants, Central Asian horse archers, and Egyptian marines in their distinctive white linen. At Thermopylae, a narrow mountain pass, 300 Spartan warriors and their allies made a legendary stand against the Persian multitude for 3 days. King Leonidas and his men fought to the death after being outflanked, their sacrifice becoming an eternal symbol of courage against impossible odds. The Persians burned Athens in revenge, but the Greek fleet destroyed the Persian navy at Salamis in the narrow straits where numbers meant nothing. Xerxes watched from a golden throne on shore as his ships were rammed and sunk by Greek triremes in a devastating naval defeat. The following year, Greek hoplites crushed the Persian army at Plataea, ending forever the dream of conquering Europe and extending empire westward. These defeats marked the beginning of Persian decline, though the empire remained powerful and wealthy for another century and a half. Successive kings struggled with succession crises, harem intrigues, and rebellious satraps who increasingly acted as independent monarchs in distant provinces. The once mighty imperial administration decayed as corruption spread through the bureaucracy, and provincial governors stopped sending full tax revenues to court. Fifth, Alexander's conquest. In 336 BCE, a 20-year-old Macedonian prince named Alexander inherited his father's throne in his dream of conquering Persia's ancient empire. The young king possessed military genius, boundless ambition, and a burning desire to surpass the legendary heroes of Greek mythology and epic poetry. Alexander crossed the Hellespont in 334 BCE with 35,000 veteran Macedonian and Greek soldiers, beginning his campaign of Asian conquest. At the Granicus River, he crushed the Persian forces in Anatolia, his cavalry charge leading from the front despite desperate attempts to kill him. The Persian king Darius III, ruling from magnificent Persepolis, underestimated the Macedonian threat at first, sending provincial forces to stop the invasion. But after Alexander liberated Greek cities in Ionia and captured wealthy Sardis without resistance, Darius realized the existential threat facing his realm. The two kings met in battle at Issus in 333 BCE, where Alexander's disciplined phalanx and devastating cavalry broke Persian lines. Darius fled the battlefield in his royal chariot, abandoning his family, treasure, and dignity to the pursuing Macedonian king and his triumphant forces. Alexander captured the Persian royal family, treating Darius's mother, wife, and daughters with respect that earned him admiration, even from his enemies. He proceeded south through Syria and Palestine, besieging Tyre for 7 months before finally breaching its supposedly impregnable island walls with innovative siege towers. Egypt welcomed Alexander as a liberator from Persian rule, and priests declared him pharaoh and son of the god Amun in ancient temples. But Alexander's eyes remained fixed on the Persian heartland, where Darius assembled another massive army for a final desperate confrontation. At Gaugamela in 331 BCE, the armies clashed on a plain chosen by Darius to favor his chariots and superior numbers in the decisive battle. Alexander's tactical genius prevailed again, his cavalry strike at the Persian center, forcing Darius once more into humiliating flight from the battlefield. Babylon opened its gates to Alexander, who marched through streets lined with cheering crowds, throwing flowers before his conquering army's feet. Susa surrendered peacefully, its treasury yielding 40,000 talents of silver and 9,000 talents of gold to fill Macedonian war chests. Finally, Alexander reached Persepolis, the ceremonial capital where Darius the Great had built monuments to Persian glory and imperial majesty 2 centuries before. After allowing his soldiers to plunder the city, Alexander burned the great palace. Whether accidentally or deliberately remains debated by historians today. Darius fled east to the Iranian plateau, desperately seeking refuge among the eastern provinces, where Persian culture remained strongest and loyalty deepest. But his own nobles, led by Bessus the Bactrian satrap, assassinated him to save themselves, leaving his body by the roadside for Alexander to find. The Macedonian king found his dead rival, covered his corpse with his own cloak, and sent it to Persepolis for royal burial with full honors. Alexander then pursued Darius's murderers across Central Asia, conquering territories from the Caspian to the Hindu Kush Mountains over 3 brutal years. The Persian Empire had fallen, but Alexander adopted Persian court ceremonies, married Persian noble women, and integrated Persian soldiers into his army structure. The conqueror became the conquered in many ways, as Greek and Persian cultures merged into the Hellenistic civilization that shaped the ancient world for centuries. The Persian Empire's journey from Cyrus's mountain kingdom to Alexander's conquest spans 2 centuries of remarkable achievement, innovation, and ultimate transformation. At Pages from History, we've explored how one civilization's vision of tolerance and administrative genius created an empire that connected East and West, preserving and transmitting knowledge across cultures. If you enjoyed this epic historical journey, please like this video, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to Pages from History for more fascinating explorations of humanity's greatest civilizations. Join us next time as we continue uncovering the stories that shaped our world.